Well, hey there. Good morning. Welcome, one and all. Welcome back to Garden America. Your garden buddies are back in the studio. Yeah, that is us. I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. We took last week off, so we hope that we didn't cause too much of a problem in your household. Of course, we've got the new website up and running, gardenamerica.com. Links to all of our podcasts, links to previous shows. It's all there. We invite you to tune in to this show every week. And, of course, log on to gardenamerica.com and check that out. So that said, we are back ready to go. Tiger Palafox is here. John is here. Tiger, a great video prepping us for today's show that you posted on Facebook during the week. I guess we're going to be talking to Ed Livo today about trees.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to Ed about trees, and a great time to discuss trees since a lot of people are going through different series of droughts, you know, whether it's from lack of rain or just heat. Stress. So we're going to be talking about how to take care of your trees during this time of year with that drought in mind, because then other parts of the country are suffering floods.
I know, right?
Above average rainfall. So not for everyone, but if you're in a dry region and you have some trees, it's going to be a great lesson on what to watch out for, how to take care of them, and also things that you can prevent problems in the future with.
And Ed is a great guest. We wind him up and just let him go.
Yeah.
So
Lots
this
of
is
good info.
If you're new to the show, new to the program, a great time to get your questions, your comments ready to post on Facebook Live, because Ed's full of answers, and Ed is going to teach us all a whole lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
A whole
Not
lot
just
about
trees,
a
right?
lot of things. And then there's John Begnasco.
Then there is.
Sitting to your left wearing his, I think that's a Hawaiian shirt that he's got on. Yeah.
I'll classify that as Hawaiian.
Tropical Hawaiian. He's in the mood.
It's Bromeliaceae and Aeraceae.
Yeah. And that's what the label on the back of your shirt says.
Yeah, that's the
same
brand.
thing.
Nice.
So that's going to be good. Ed's going to be with us at about 1:15. Anyway, good to be back in the studio. We hope that you didn't go through withdrawals too bad last week while we were gone. Tiger, you were in Cancun.
Yep.
You came back with just a number of great stories.
Yeah.
Many of which we cannot share, but entertaining nevertheless.
Yeah, family trips always fun. You know, it's never a real family trip without a couple of emergency room visits or here and there.
Right? You got
know,
kids with you.
Yeah, no, but we had a great time and beautiful weather there and lots of fun stuff to see and culture and history. So it was neat to experience that with the kids. Whenever you can open your kids up to new experiences, it's neat to see the look on their faces and how they react.
Yeah, because they assume, I think we all assumed when we were young, the whole world's like that.
Yeah.
It's just like we live here in this country. The whole world's the same way.
Exactly,
it's
right?
not.
No.
What was the biggest eye-opener for them that you really, you could tell they were like, wow, this is a different country, or this is new, this is different?
So a couple things. One had to do with food, because we got served crickets as part of our food.
Protein.
So, yeah, which wasn't anything super extreme because my kids have seen that before, but it was like, this was just like a normal like side dish right there with your food.
Would you like mashed potatoes or crickets with your steak?
Correct. Exactly. You know, and then, you know, the different like water parks and things that we went to are more natural. They're like true like streams and rivers that are part of this. They're not really man-made.
Not fabricated as much as we're used to.
Right. And so because of that, you know, you have to be more careful. You have to watch out more and things. And so it was kind of neat for them to kind of be a little bit unsheltered in that way. So they were both excited about that.
Now, you were there for what, a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and Tasia got a little cut under her chin, right?
Yeah, you know, when you're dealing with slippery floors and goofing around, you know,
So what
it's
does
bound
Tiger
to happen.
What does Tiger tell her? Come on, keep your chin up. Right?
Exactly.
Is that her first time she had to get stitches?
No.
Oh,
no,
she's a pro.
She's a matter of fact, I think she has stitches in the same exact spot.
Stitches in the stitches.
Yeah.
Stitches in the stitches. Hey,
Yeah,
John-
I was
go ahead,
going
John.
through my library.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see how this book ends.
Your extensive library.
Yeah, this is Restios of the Feinbos. Feinbos.
Ooh.
Always wanted to read that.
Yeah.
Never had a chance.
But I was going to ask Tiger, where do you get Restios? Because I really like them, but it seems like they're not available.
No. What's that nursery up in San Juan Capistrano? Native something life? Tree of Life?
Native Sons?
Tree of Life.
Oh, Tree of Life?
Tree of Life? Is that up in San
Yeah,
Juan
but
Capistrano?
Restios are native to Africa, not to...
No, but like I feel like they have them there.
Really?
Yeah. And then,
I'm thinking that we need to grow some,
yeah,
like buy some seeds
and just
plant
start.
them. My thought was that maybe there's not a lot of restios in California or Southern California because, for the most part, they like acid soils.
Okay.
But there's also some that'll grow in alkaline soils. So
Yeah.
What's the difference? You say some do, some don't. Why?
well, the difference would be life or death.
What
do you mean? What are you getting at?
Okay, you say most of them like alkaline soil, right?
Right.
But others,
No, most like acid soil.
okay.
So it'd be like azaleas and camellias.
Okay, got it.
If you plant those and you're planting them in alkaline soils, they could be chlorotic, not look good.
Okay.
They just failure to thrive, Brian.
Sort of like when you walk in here some Saturdays.
Pretty much.
Failure to thrive.
Pretty
That-
much.
I can identify with that now.
But
I think-
restio, do you know what restios are? You probably don't.
I don't. I may have seen them and not even know it.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're described as grasses
Yeah.
or reeds or
Reeds.
bamboos.
Reeds.
But they're none of those. Those are all different classes of plants. They're just restios. And the fynbos, which is in South Africa, is the area where they grow. As a matter of fact, that kind of defines the fynbos. So anyway, they're so unique. When I saw
Spell restios before you move on.
REST, could sing that. almost.
RESPCT.
Yeah. No, it's
Little Aretha Franklin going there.
Right, RESTIO.
RESTIO.
Yeah, one of our listeners asked that, so that's right.
Oh yeah. And if you want to spell fynbos, because that's more difficult, fynbos is FYNBOS. But anyway, I saw really noticed them up at the LA Arboretum about a year ago. And I'm just fascinated with the appearance, the way they look, and I need to add some to my landscape, but I can't find them anywhere. So, but I have found two companies, one in Africa, and I'm not sure where the other one was, that sells seeds. So the problem with seeds is you have to smoke them before you plant them.
Well, is that a problem, John? I mean,
I don't think I think you're thinking of a different kind of
Different kind of
smoking.
smoking.
my,
than-
my mind goes elsewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a product of the 60s and 70s. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Some plants from areas where there's fires,
Yeah, they.
like a lot of protea, and in restios in particular,
Fire opens up those seeds, doesn't
will not germinate unless they've been smoked,
Yeah.
like a fire's gone by.
Yeah.
So you can buy smoke in a package, and you can add it to your seeds to get them to germinate.
Is it just ash, or is it something else? Like smoke in a package? Is it just like?
There's a chemical in the ash that
makes it
right, and
Okay.
it could be that.
Chemical reactions, Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I was kind of smirking as you were talking about restios, John, because we're setting up a new POS system in our garden center.
Mhm.
And the other day, a manager comes in and goes, "Hey, can we add a classification, grass-like plants?" Because there's you can have trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, and one of the classes was grasses.
Right.
And she goes, "Can we add grass-like?" I'm like, Why do we want to add grass-like?
Grass
And
hyphen
she's
like.
And she's like, well, there's these plants like restios that are grasses, but they're not grasses, and I want a class for grass-like. And I was like, at what point in time does a grass become a grass-like plant and not just put it in the grass?
Where's the tipping point? Right.
So your answer was, why don't we just have restios as the
No,
class?
because I don't think we have any to put in that category.
Hey,
Right.
this would be a good time I'm looking at the clock here. We're going to take a break. Second segment, Ed Livo, who, by the way, is on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
We're going to bring him on. John, we need your quote of the week.
Right now?
Sure.
I saw that our buddy from the San Diego Botanic Garden, John Clements, is
yeah.
online, and I saw him post this quote. And I thought you'd appreciate it because of these troubled times we're in, Brian.
Got to give John Clements credit on this one.
Yeah. And he said, he didn't say, but Ralph Waldo Emerson said, let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of dreaming that I am persecuted whenever I'm contradicted.
Got to think about that for a while.
Yeah, but
that's good though. That's very good.
I thought it was so good. So thank you, John.
Yep. Hey, it is break time. We're going to bring Ed Livo on. I'm going to call him during the break. Welcoming those on Biz Talk Radio. This show is from last week, by the way, so we do appreciate you tuning in, I should say, not turning in, but tuning in. So we're going to bring Ed on. Going to take a break, and again, welcome to Garden America. Ed's got a lot to say. Get those questions and those comments ready. I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Bagnasco. We are back in the studio. It is Garden America. All righty, we are back after a break on Biz Talk Radio. A shorter break here on Facebook Live, so thank you so much for being there, tuning in. It is good to be back in the studio after taking last week off. So that said, Tiger, I think we are ready to go. Ed Livo, again, watching on Facebook Live. Questions, comments for Ed, Tiger. Let's do this.
Yeah, so this morning we have Ed Livo from Birchell.
Check out Infinite.
He's infinite.
Nurseries, joining us to talk about taking care of your trees during this this heat wave that we're suffering here in Southern California, but in other parts of the country. Good morning, Ed. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Birchell Nursery, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Sorry, I was a little bit distracted by other things coming through my mind at the moment.
That's all right. I love the idea of sitting here watching you all on Facebook, sitting here talking on the phone, and being like how many hundreds of miles away. Love it.
Yeah.
Tiger mentioned the heat wave in Southern California. It's actually Northern California that's had the heat wave, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, yes and no. I mean, we've been warm since early this season, so it's affected a lot of things up here. We got warm early, but in the last week or two, we've kind of moderated, so now we're somewhere down around, the hundreds, low 90s, high 90s, low 90s, and so, like tomatoes are setting again, and, plants are acting normal again, but, when we were up in the 100 to 110, different world. I think they call it hell.
Oh man, that is the pits right there when it gets that hot, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's not much you can do. I mean, plants are suffering, but of course, so are people. So now we can relate.
Yeah. Hey, so Ed, we're talking about this drought. We're talking about trees, and this is a big topic for a lot of people because it's kind of like, well, we're suffering these drought temperatures or drought weather in the sense of lack of water, but then you have to go out and water your landscape, and people say, oh well, don't water your landscape. We want to save water, but at the same time, in order for these trees to survive, they have to get some water. What are some signs that your tree are suffering stress from drought that people should watch out for?
Well, that's kind of difficult. It can be any number of different things, and it can be the yellowing of the leaf. It can be wilting of the leaf. It could be leaf drop. But I think for the most part, it's a number of different things.
And
hey, you want some perspective on this?
Well, one of the things you and I kind of talked about was that, those things that you mentioned are also overwatering.
Right. No, that's
what you watch out for.
That's the dilemma.
Right. And so it's more about knowing what's happening in the soil, meaning, if you walk out there and you got leaves dropping off and you got bone dry soil, you can pretty much guarantee you're underwatering. But if you walk out there and it's like a swamp and the leaves are falling off, you can guarantee it's overwatering during this time of year. So it's kind of
where's
about
the happy
knowing.
medium, right? The happy medium there, Ed.
Well, I mean, there is a happy medium, and I think that's what I would call California responsible. But let me give you some perspective. This is fun, okay? This is one of my favorite topics. I've been speaking on being water conscious in California since the middle to late 90s, and I started writing about it at that time. But let me give you some perspective that actually will shock everybody into listening to the reasoning. Droughts in California, the most severe drought we've ever had in California was 220 years long, and that was 892 to 1112. The second longest drought in California history was 141 years long. That was 1209 to 1350. So those are the extreme droughts. And the way we know that happened is, of course, because there's an entire forest below the level that Lake Tahoe is at right now, an ancient forest that is 70 feet below the surface of Lake Tahoe. And so consequently, that's the level that it fell to during those periods. Okay, so the longest modern drought we have is between 1928 to 1935. Wasn't so severe because we had some minor rains in between that 7-year drought. The next one, of course, would be the late 70s drought, which was only a year. I mean, that was only a year. And then 1987 to 92 was a 5-year drought. Now we've had 2006 to 10. Then we had a brief interval, and then it was 2012 to 17, and now we're back in again. So we've been in drought probably historically in California more than we've actually had predominant rains. But when we have had predominant rains, we've also had extreme mega rains, too, of course, and that's the 1861 to 1862 flood that flooded the entire Central Valley, all the Los Angeles Basin, all the Napa Valley. So California is the land of extremes, and just ask any politician.
That is true.
See, my guess would have been on the forest that was under Lake Tahoe, that died from too much water.
Yeah.
Eventually it did. Eventually it succumbed to too much water, and thank goodness for that. And then all of a sudden we had a migration of people that came out, after that as well. But I think there's some things that really, need to be put in perspective in California, and that is that, when you're growing in California in a landscape, I don't care what plant you're growing, but I think there's certain things that you should have and take serious notion of that you should have, and that's time clocks, drip irrigation, and mapped hydrozones. Mapped hydrozones, so that you know how much water you're putting on in one area, so you're not watering numerous different plants with numerous different requirements, throughout your yard. And I think these are key, I think, to growing and being a responsible gardener in California now. Time clocks, drip irrigation, and the notion of mapped hydrozones.
Yeah, and that's so that way you can control the water, you can moderate it, you can, kind of minimize those mistakes if you don't have those systems, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You want control. That's the whole idea. You want as much control as possible.
Hey,
and back to politicians.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but this is personal. This is what we all want.
It's so important to know the type of soil that you have before you even start, I think, with the watering, because I got an email from a text, actually, with a picture from my daughter who just moved to Idaho, to Meridian, just west of Boise. And she had some evergreens that were yellowing, and she's watering the way she did when she was here in California, and she's got heavy clay soils.
Yeah.
So it's just way too much water, even though the temperatures up there have been 100. And when she lived in Temecula and it got to be 100, you went out and poured on the water.
Yeah.
Brian was just mentioning
I couldn't agree more, and I think that, when you consider the difference in soils, the clay, loamy soils, the mixed clay, loamy soils, soils with shallow hardpan, any different notion. I've always cautioned people that, your planting is unique. What's happening in your yard is unique, and it's unique to your neighbor. So you can't compare what your neighbor's doing. And I really, the notion of somebody saying, well, how often should I water this plant? And typically I say, well, first, you want to know how your soil drains.
Hey, Ed, real quick. Sorry to interrupt. We're going to have to take a break, but we want to hit on this topic more, and we're going to go into more detail when we get back from break, talking with Ed Livo.
Yeah, you betcha. And those that tuned in on Facebook Live, again, questions, comments for Ed Livo. Great interview, great guest, and a lot of information still to come our way. Going to take a break, of course. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. This is Garden America, back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All righty, it is Saturday morning or maybe Saturday afternoon, depending upon where you are listening to our show, be it streaming, digital, or be it live on Facebook, or 1 week delay broadcast on Biz Talk Radio. We are back at John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. I'm Brian Main. Great guest, Ed Livo. We continue, Tiger. And again, do want to remind those on Facebook Live, questions, comments for Ed, go ahead and post.
Yeah, so before the break, Ed was describing, somebody had asked him how to water these trees, and you were expanding on what you recommended as far as styles of watering or different ways that you can water the trees, right, Ed?
Yeah, I really think that you have to get to know your own soil, and I've always cited this phrase that I made up years ago, and it's not how much water that you're giving a plant. It's rather how little water does it take to keep your plant healthy and productive. Mm-hmm. And I think if you go on that notion, you're looking to try to minimize your water use and also maximizing the health of the plant and the productivity of the plant with that amount of water that you're applying. So that's your goal. That should always be your goal.
And, especially when it comes to fruit trees, because overwatering fruit trees, can have negative effects as far as the fruit themselves, the production, different things. So like you're saying, finding that balance, because just because you can put more water on it doesn't mean you should sometimes if you want to get good production.
No, that's true. And it's the number one reason that people lose fruit trees is overwatering. And it's not always their fault. It typically is a result of winter rains, in an inappropriate spot that was chosen that doesn't drain well, and the rains, of course, affect the root system, and oxygenation, of course, is depleted for that long period of time. The tree suffers, and then in the spring, of course, it leaves out, but starts to wilt. So what's the first thing people do?
Yeah, begin to water.
Hey, water.
Hey, Ed, I wanted to hit another kind of myth that's been running around there, especially when it comes to people talking about drought, because then we see all these articles come out on how to water, when to water, and all of that stuff. And I know this isn't the rule for everyone where you live. There's some parts of the country that should not water at night. But for dry regions that we aren't dealing with large amounts of humidity, worrying about disease and rot issues and stuff like that, what do you think about watering your trees at 9 p.m. With
I think
a
watering
drip?
your trees at 9 p.m. is just fine. The less you have the heat and the dryness, of our more Mediterranean climates affecting, of course, dissipation of your water, because where's water go? It goes on the ground first, unless you've got inline buried irrigation. But so, and that what happens is that you get a percentage of that evaporates right away. So watering in the evening, of course, limits that.
Yeah. And, that's the kind of a bummer for a lot of people here in dry regions, when we're talking about California, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, is that, they've been told, oh, no, don't water until, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. You got to worry about diseases and things like that. But it's like, no, meanwhile, you could be having all of that water go into the ground over the, evening hours and have it not be evaporated, but actually goes into the roots. So,
absolutely.
And plants don't know what time.
During the between about 11 and 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And consider the people giving you that advice.
Yeah.
They're not horticulturists.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Too. Hey,
yeah.
And one thing too, if a horticulturalist gives you that advice, it's fair to question any advice. I mean, I think I've been kind of outside the box my entire career. You don't know how often I get questioned. I get questioned all the time. And so what it does is it stimulates me to go and create a more solid explanation of what I mean, or go out and do some R&D and create some tests so that I can show what the theories are. But in essence, it's all right to get a second opinion in horticulture too.
Yeah. Hey, Ed, another thing I wanted to let our listeners have some insight on is, kind of how to water, how to fertilize these trees during this time of year as well, because there's this whole talk of the drip line of the tree. The drip line of the tree, that's where you want to be doing these things. That's where you want the water to go. What are your thoughts on watering trees? Should you just put a hose right at the base of it and let it soak it? Like, what do you think about watering these trees?
Well, there's a number of different ways to set up drip irrigation. My drip irrigation, actually, I run a drip line, an inline drip tube. I have 3 different circles around the base of my trees, one roughly out about 12 inches, the second one out roughly about 3 feet, and the third one roughly out about 5 to 6 feet. And so, in essence, and I don't even put the last one on until the tree gets older. So that's how I do it. Other people may run, a spitter, that actually, of course, puts on a pattern of water around the base of the tree. That's fine as well. I like drip because the spitters tend to, of course, have an evaporation problem, dissipation problem. But and also, my idea of outside the drip line is 3 feet. I want to be, and on a newly planted tree. And I think we're leading towards mulch, aren't we, Tiger?
Yeah.
Mulch is so important, and a top dressing on your plantings are so important in California. I think it's probably one of the most important things you do after time clocks and irrigation and mapping your hydrozones. But mulch, I like to recommend 2 to 3 inches. And I like to recommend it 3 feet outside of wherever the canopy of the tree stops. On a young planting, I want it to be at least 3 feet out.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of people make mistakes is they put mulch right up to the base of the plant, or they even just put it like, oh, it's 6 inches away from the trunk, I'll be okay, not realizing that mulch moves with time, settles and whatnot, and
Sure.
builds up around the base. So I like your rule of 3 feet out from the tree itself is a good way to put the mulch.
From the outside of the canopy, you bet, because the roots don't stop at the drip line. I mean, I think that's the notion that gets created, in when you say go to the drip line. It's kind of like people think that the roots stop there. Roots are charged, and their charge is go out and find me some water, go out and find me some food. And, they get out to the outside of that drip line, and if it ain't there, they keep going. They keep looking. And I like... I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the author Robert Corrick. Maybe John has. But Robert Corrick has got some great books. He started out with Roots Demystified back in the 80s, early 80s. But he's got some great stuff on root systems and what they do, and also on watering. And his theories on watering are pretty controversial as well. But as a matter of fact, I follow him successfully, which is great.
So kind of leading into that, you mentioned mulching. What are your thoughts on fertilizing during a heat wave, during this hot weather?
Well, if you're using organic fertilizer, I mean, that's fine. Because remember, organic fertilizer actually becomes more, a part of the soil, and it gets taken up by the soil biology. And so it's there for the plant, when it needs it. Plants are smarter than I think we give them credit for. And, I think studies have already proven the fact that, other than maybe with an ammonium sulfate application, which tends to be like, raising your plants on drugs, if you are fertilizing with, a good organic fertilizer, that really is just fortifying the soil so that when the plant's ready to use that or ready in need of that nutrient, it takes it up. So I don't think there's any problem at all with applying fertilizer if in fact that's what you do. I don't apply any fertilizer at all. All my trees are all top dressed and mulched, and the IO layer was created, has been creating for years, and so I have a natural decomposition going down roughly about 4 inches in the soil, and I keep topping my around my fruit trees every year with a good wood chip mulch.
Yeah, and that's what breaks down and then creates that nutrients in the soil for you, so you don't need the fertilizers, right?
Yeah, you don't need to fertilize. I mean, some of my nursery friends don't like me saying that, but I mean that the fact is that if you create an environment where where the nutrient is just happening naturally, and it's happening more in harmony with what the tree would be doing naturally, then I think the results are pretty obvious.
Yeah, you and John are definitely on the same boat when it comes to that kind of thing.
We're old school, that's why.
Yeah, let the soil do what it was supposed to do.
Right, and either one of us has to run a retail nursery.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey Ed, we're gonna take a break, here in just a minute, but when we get back, we're still talking with Ed Livo. We're talking about taking care of your trees during a drought, and we'll get into maybe some of the tree canopy care and what to watch out for as the heat turns on as well.
And a couple of questions on
I do see some
Facebook
questions.
Live. So again, do stay with us. Going to take a quick break on Facebook Live, a little bit longer on Biz Talk Radio. So we do appreciate you supporting our sponsors and the good folks at Biz Talk Radio. It is Saturday, the weekend. Welcome, Garden America, Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, Ed Livo. We're going to be right back here on Garden America. Stay with us. All righty. Thank you for tuning in. If you are listening to us on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of hour number one. You've got news coming up top of the hour. Then, of course, hour two, 6 minutes after, rejoining Garden America and Facebook Live. A little bit different format. We just kind of keep on rolling there. Ed Livo, we're talking trees. A lot of things going on this morning, Tiger. A couple of questions on Facebook, but let's keep the train moving, Tiger.
Yeah, so before the break, I had mentioned, talking to Ed about some tree care during this time of year where we have, hot daytime temperatures, we have scorching sun, and we might see some damage to some of our trees. What kind of tree care do you recommend with this time of year? Do you just leave any kind of damage problems on the tree because it might be protecting other parts of the tree? Do you recommend doing any pruning? What do you suggest, Ed?
Well, I'll tell you what. Right off the bat, I'm of the school that says don't let your trees get any taller than 7 to 8 feet, anyways. So, and for the sake of being, somewhat sensitive to what most people, think when you suggest that, in most of the recommendations that I recommend on tomorrowsharvest.com, I say below 10 feet. So,
yeah.
But all my trees are at 8 feet or less. And a couple of things are accomplished with that. One is my canopies are so low. My canopies begin roughly at about 20 inches, 25 inches, at the most. And so the entire tree is protected by a canopy, a solid canopy. Also, when you grow a tree lower like that, keep in mind that when you're talking about water use, a shorter tree like that uses far less water than a full-size tree. So you're not going to achieve this with semi-dwarf rootstocks. You have to prune. And so, we recommend, of course, summer pruning. I wrote Backyard Orchard Culture back in the 90s, and I think it's, still being shared and practiced, and I think it should be. It's a great way to manage your trees at a reasonable height and also, in this case, contribute to using less water as well. And still, I just went out and picked, about, say, 25 pounds of burgundy plum for some plum jams we're going to be making today. And I picked it off of a tree that I didn't need a ladder. I just stood there and picked my fruit.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned when we were talking earlier this week is not to think of citrus as citrus trees, but to think of them as citrus bushes. They should be kind of more or less low branched bushes, not a tree in the standard form where it's pruned up 4 or 5 feet and then you have a canopy, right?
Yeah, that's a landscape approach to using citrus. Citrus naturally are low, have low canopies, and avocados as well. Low canopies, they have a natural defense or we won't even call it a defense. It's absolutely a natural way of keeping their root cool. So when we're talking about putting on mulch, we're talking about keeping that surface root, that primary feeder root that's in that top, say, 8 inches, keeping that cool and not allowing it to dry out in between waterings. And that citrus and avocados do that naturally, but, when we limb them up, we take away that natural defense. So if you take and you put up, if you plant a citrus, and Meyer lemon's a great example. Meyer lemon's not a great tree anyway, so you grow it as a bush, keep it at about, say, 6-8 feet tall. You have more lemons than you know what to do with, and you can put it in a corner somewhere where it doesn't get in your way.
That is true, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they will definitely produce those Meyer lemons, so you don't have to worry about that at all.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to mention that one of our listeners in Idaho,
a viewer as well, a listener and a viewer, was wondering what your thoughts were about. I know we already talked about what you felt on how to fertilize and organic foods if you are using them, but he wondered what your opinion was on fertilizer spikes, like the tree spikes.
Yeah. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan. I don't know.
I would have guessed
there's a lot of challenges to what I believe a fertilizer spike can do. One is, it has to have moisture constantly on it to break it down. So, you got to hope that your irrigation system, of course, constantly keeps it wet. That's one, and it breaks down. So, I mean, there's a ratio, a percentage that it breaks down, and I think that's hard to calculate. Also, it concentrates fertilizer in one area where, if you just take and spread again, we're feeding the soil, we're not feeding the plant. So I think that, spikes tend to suggest you're feeding the plant. And so I think it creates the wrong notion. So I like the idea of feeding the soil. I think I've prescribed to that for years, and now I think that a fertilizer spike kind of goes contrary to that.
Hey, Ed, you mentioned also at what point when that spike breaks down, do you know if it's still doing any good or not, right?
Correct, yeah, you bet. And granted, I'm sure that the companies that actually sell these have done the research to be able to put on the boxes, packages, what their expectations are under their conditions that they've tested them. That's fine, but we talked about it earlier. The variances in soil conditions, climate effects on those soil conditions, are so vast that, you just can't use one scenario as an example of how this is going to react.
All right. Hey, Ed, one of the things
All right.
that, we talked about also this week, because we're talking about soil conditions, knowing your environment right now, and fertilizers, you mentioned something that I thought was pretty interesting. You put a term on it. Was it the biblical plantings?
Biblical varieties.
Yeah, the biblical varieties. And I thought this was a great thing to mention because, if you're thinking about planting a tree, you can kind of go outside the box. Maybe you want to grow a citrus, a lemon, like we talked about. But if you're in an area where maybe you just know you don't have a lot of water, there's a lot of trees out there that still produce fruit, but have done really well in hot, dry environments, right? And you have a series of different trees you suggest for that.
Yeah, they've actually stood the test of time, in adapting to different climate zones and different, and primarily all of them share one thing in common, and that is their low water needs. And that's, of course, beginning right at the top with pomegranates, and then figs, and, of course, olives, walnuts fit into that category. And, believe it or not, mulberries fit into that category too. But you can't establish the mulberry with irrigation to begin with. It has to be established with limited water to begin with, and it'll adapt.
Oh. So if you started the mulberry with an irrigation system, it'll always be necessary to have it. But if you kind of can start your mulberry off and running and make it suffer a bit, it'll harden off and adapt.
Yes, yeah, you bet. And it's a funny thing too, because really doesn't that apply to all plants in California?
That is true. Hey, Ed, we are going to have to take another break right now. Sorry to cut you off again. When we get back, we'll continue talking with Ed Livo, and we'll be talking about taking care of your trees during a drought.
That is absolutely correct. And those on Biz Talk Radio, top of the hour news coming up. We'll come back. You'll rejoin us at 6 minutes after. However, Facebook Live, we're going to keep on rolling. We're going to take a very quick break and be right back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. No messages on Facebook Live, but Garden America does continue. Stay with us. And we thank you for tuning in to Garden America. Those on the East Coast, wherever you are, we say good afternoon, but who knows? It could be very early in the morning or middle of the night when you listen and watch these programs. We are back Facebook Live and Biz Talk Radio. For Biz Talk Radio, hour number 2, I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. Lively conversation with Ed Livo. And again, more questions, comments that we're seeing on Facebook Live, and we will get to those, Tigers. So let's get back and rejoin Ed.
Yeah, so Ed, do you mind if we go through a few questions right now that we've accumulated on Facebook?
No problem. Go ahead.
All right. So the first one I'm going to read here is from Susie, and it says, I have 2 orange trees and a grapefruit tree at my house in Lemon Grove. I've lived in Arizona and come to California once a month. Since the timer I had continued to work and I had a $300 a month water bill, they only get watered when it rains or when I'm in town. So far, they have produced good fruit in the past 2 years. So it seems like she had a timer, but it doesn't seem to be working. And she only waters these trees every so often, but they seem to be producing okay. I don't necessarily know if I see a question in here.
I think she's talking about a once-a-month watering. Is that going to work on mature citrus?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. You know, you see citrus all over the place. It has no irrigation on it whatsoever. I mean, you know, old established plants, and citrus could fall into the category of biblical plants as well. But you know, the problem is that most citrus in California, just like we were saying, it's raised in an irrigated landscape, and so consequently, you know, once it doesn't have water, it has a lot of trouble adjusting the other direction. A lot of these plants, man, if you start out by, you know, raising them on less water, they're going to adapt.
You know, one of the plants that was in this week's newsletter, if you subscribe to it, all you got to do is, Brian, go to gardenamerica.com.
GardenAmerica.com right there.
Sign up
is
for it.
Easier than ever to sign up for our newsletter. Again, that's GardenAmerica.com, John.
Right, but there was a little article on jujubes, and I think that might fall in the same category.
Jujubes, yeah.
Are tough as nails.
Yeah.
Once they're established, you can't kill them.
Hey, so Ed, I think you bring up a good point, and maybe a point that many of us just never thought about, and that is acclimating your trees to how much water they can get used to using or not. And again, if you start them off with a lot of water, that's what they're going to be used to. But again, they will adapt basically on whatever premise you establish, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to that one line that I like, the phrase that I say. It's not how much water you give this plant. It's rather how little water does it take to keep the plant healthy and productive. And if you start out with that notion, you know, how little water does it take to keep this plant healthy, you'll be a lot more successful. And, you know, and keep in mind these other things that we're talking about, mulching, you know, of course. And I would add in things like that have come up recently that are more permaculture-based, which are, you know, kind of where I came from out of the 70s. But if you look at things like berming, and creating swales so that during the wintertime you capture water that actually then permeates down below your fruit trees and actually saturates that lower strata. That's a great technique for California. And don't forget water capture systems. I think we all should have one. I have 1,000 gallons.
Oh, wow. Excellent. That'll go a long way in an orchard, huh?
Yeah, I don't use it in my orchard, though. I use it in my vegetable garden, as a matter of fact. Mainly because, believe it or not, 1,000 gallons isn't a lot of water. But I use it primarily for my starts in the spring, and then I use it for fertilizing, you know, so that I have clean water for fertilizing. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, I save a little bit and contribute a little bit to the environment, I guess.
Hey, Ed, I did post the link on our Facebook live feed to the tomorrowsharvest.com, the frequently asked questions, and this is where you are helping them develop some kind of how-tos, some good information about growing fruit trees, orchards, and things like that. Even you got some videos up there to be able to kind of show people on how to do things correctly. What other things can people look for on the Tomorrow Harvest website?
Well, I mean, you can look for Tomorrow's Harvest on Facebook as well. and you can look for it on Instagram. And that's really where we post a lot of the videos are up on Facebook. And you know what? And to tell you the truth, we're just starting to become efficient at this. Someday we hope to be up to the status of Garden America. But, you know, we're novice now. But and then the other one that I use a lot is called Ed Able Solutions. And Ed Able Solutions is my own site that I have lots of videos up on fruit varieties, and also, of course, maintaining fruit trees at a smaller height, and mulching. I've got all kinds of.
Yeah, and you get experts joining you on that program as well, and being able to kind of talk about different subjects. So that's a good resource for people that are looking to grow some fruit trees as well.
Yeah. It's all fun. It's all fun and serious fun.
Yeah, and and then in regards to tomorrow's harvest, people planning for next year, that's a great resource to see the different varieties, right?
Oh yeah, tremendous. And we just put up a whole new inventory. I mean, the hot commodity fruit tree this year is definitely citrus, because there's so few growers now that have a lot of citrus available. We just put up a whole selection of new citrus available on tomorrow's harvest, as well as a fresh batch of avocados. And I think we have a pretty good selection of both up right now.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, and then,
because
of course, a great selection of the of your standard fruit trees as well. And probably one of the exciting ones there that we just got done with was a donut-style nectarine called Snack Time, and it is to die for.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I'll have to get one of those.
Well, we've got a whole bunch of different styles of donut nectarines and peaches that, man, I've always found intriguing, but I never realized, until I got to Burchell, how many they've actually captured that actually are tremendously flavored and unique in their time slots as well. So you can have donut-style peaches and nectarines all season long if you choose, and most of them are lower chill.
So Ed, in your backyard, I'm assuming you have some restrictions in space for things. If you see something like this new nectarine come on and you get excited about it, you're like, oh, something's got to go in my backyard. I got to make room for it. Are you still planting new things here and there, or are you kind of done planting at your yard?
Okay, I'll give you the sore subject. All right, that's a sore subject. And why is it a sore subject? Because I do have new places coming up in my yard. Why? Because, believe it or not, for the first time in my life, in my entire career, I have a tremendous gopher problem this year. Oh. And they've taken out a couple of my trees. And I'm telling you what, me and the gophers, we're at war.
I can just see Ed and Caddyshack out there with this.
Oh, you got it. Man, it's terrible. So and I have been, pretty much gopherless, and I don't know why. I don't have a clue. My neighbors would have gopher problems, but I sure haven't. So I don't know. I guess I'm getting my just desserts now. But, and most times I just pass. I work in the industry. I work around these fruit varieties. My favorite varieties are in my collection. I have 37 varieties of fruit trees in my yard right now. I have a standard-size residential yard. On Edible Solutions, you can actually see it's all terraced. I terraced it out. I have vegetable gardens. My landscape's entirely edible.
Oh. Well, Ed, lots of great information. Thank you very much for joining us this week and sharing this with our listeners. Again, naturesharvest.com for more information.
Tomorrow's harvest.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Tomorrowsharvest.com.
Manana.
For more information, or follow Ed on Facebook as well. Thank you very much, Ed. You take care.
Oh, thank you, guys.
All right, Ed Livo. And again, good guest, great guest, and a lot of good information.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you could buy fruit trees off that website.
Yeah, it's neat, right?
Yeah, I just went and looked and saw a few trees that I've been looking for.
Perfect.
And it's $39.99. I guess it's not a bad price for a fruit tree.
No, not
kidding?
at all.
$40?
And especially because it's going to be something you're not going to be able to find somewhere else, probably, especially this time of year.
Right.
But
you want to answer that last question?
We have a question from Patty, right?
Yeah.
So she said she had a 20-year-old liquid amber that they lost due to gopher ground squirrels. Would it be okay to grow a jacaranda or mimosa tree in that hole? There's nothing wrong with a hole as far as to plant a new tree in the hole, but
you'd have to re-prep everything or not?
Well, I mean, you got to be worried about the gophers and ground squirrels again. Even for a jacaranda or a mimosa, you want to get rid of that problem first. Planting them in a gopher cage is also recommended, but that'll only do so much as far as protection.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and continue to address that. Cool, John? Want to get John's permission to take a break?
Yes, please do.
Beautiful. Okay, we are going to take a break. And again, still open to your questions, your comments, maybe something Ed talked about, or move us in a different direction. Happy Saturday. This is Garden America. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. And just like that, if you're tuned in to Facebook Live, we are right back. Biz Talk Radio, a bit longer break, but we do appreciate everybody back at Biz Talk Radio, Travis and the gang keeping us on the air and supporting our many supporters, our many advertisers on Biz Talk Radio. Tiger, let's continue our thought process here.
Yeah, so we're just talking about Patty's question about she lost a liquid amber to a gopher ground squirrel problem and wants to plant a new tree in the same hole, and is that going to be a problem? And the gophers and the ground squirrels didn't cause any issues in terms of can't replant, but if you plant a new plant in there,
what's to stop the same issue?
Exactly. So you want to make sure you kind of get rid of the gophers or squirrels, and then also plant it in a gopher cage just to get it established before it runs into any problems. Any thoughts, John?
Well, I was just going to mention on at my new home, we have a driveway, and we left a circle in the driveway, so I was thinking of planting a tree in there. And my son said, I think that'd be a good spot for a fountain. We'll just put rocks at the bottom and then have stones with the water coming out.
You know me, I'm a fountain guy, John. I've always encouraged that.
But my wife is still thinking of a tree, and I told her, I said, you know what? I need a jackhammer that it's just pure granite there. I don't even know if a tree would grow, because I think if you put something in there, it's just going to fill up with water and it's going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had a bougainvillea tree that I set on a little piece of wood and just had it there for looks right now, right? Yesterday I go out, and what is there? A gopher.
A gopher?
Really?
Where?
In that circle
that hole?
that went through like almost pure granite.
Wow.
Well, that's another reason maybe not to put a tree there, right?
Well, I mean, that's anywhere on my property, but
Yeah.
I, of all places that I would think a gopher would not get to, it would be.
You know what? Go with the
A
fountain.
hard
Go with the fountain,
concrete.
John.
Right.
Go with the
pad.
fountain. It's going to look good. You got to clean it now and then, but I'd go
More
with the fountain.
expensive, though.
Yeah, the initial investment.
Yeah. There is electricity to that hole, so.
Perfect. Now, we've had our fountain for a year. In fact, June was a year.
Right.
And I told Dana, I go, I can see, and Tiger even mentioned this, that, people, they get the fountains and they go about a year or so. Then they start to lose interest. They don't keep the upkeep and so on and so forth. But we enjoy ours so much that the little upkeep there is, I don't mind doing. And it's nice to come home and have that trickling water in that oasis of a garden that I have in my patio, Tiger.
Marilyn says that Ed needs an owl box, that her son made an owl box, and that now they have 4 owlets in it, and they eat gophers, rats, and mice.
That's true. Those are good. Owls are good.
Right.
All right.
But I have hundreds of gophers,
Yeah,
and I have
exactly.
owls.
Yeah.
So they'll be well fed. I don't have to worry about feeding the owls.
So I got a father question for both of you guys. Okay, this is a situation I'm running into at my home.
Okay.
And John, you've been really familiar with this for years, so I'm thinking I'll get some good advice from you. All right. So in the past 3 months, I found that little rattlesnake. Do you remember I mentioned that? Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I found a gopher snake, and I found a gardener snake.
Okay. Quite the variety.
Yeah, and out of the 3, the rattlesnake is the one you worry about the most.
Especially
Right.
because it's a young rattlesnake.
And it was a young one. I
Yeah.
put it in a bucket. I threw it into my canyon. So be it. Well, last night, curled up next to my sunflowers, little rattlesnake again.
Same one?
I'm assuming.
Who knows, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't identify him that good. So, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, do I kill it? But I like the idea that it does, but I've got a dog now, which is just a bonehead. And so he'll just get bit by it. I've got kids now playing. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, it's a canyon. I don't even know if this is the same one or if it's a different one. I don't know. So I put it in the canyon again. But if I see a rattlesnake again in my yard, what do you guys think I should do?
Get rid of it. I don't think
kill
that
it?
rattlesnakes are endangered. The fact that you have kids, you've got a dog. I know that's not your first inclination to want to kill anything like that because they do serve a purpose. But if it's going to be a continual problem, and especially it's a young one, I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't advocate killing anything either.
Yeah.
You've tried to relocate it, basically, but if the canyon's too close to your yard.
Yeah, if you don't want to kill it, I would definitely move it somewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Farther
take
away.
it for a ride.
But there's
somewhere.
other snakes down there anyway. I mean, that's not the only one.
Yeah. All right. Maybe if I see it again next time, I will take it for a drive.
A drive, yeah.
In a canyon.
Somebody posted a picture online, I think about a week ago, had a picture of a king snake eating a rattlesnake.
Whoa.
I didn't even know that happened.
Yeah, the snakes eat other snakes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, especially a king snake eating a rattlesnake. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And a lot of those snakes are totally immune to the venom anyway.
Yeah.
Much like, what is that? Is it a mongoose or something? That they actually fight black mambas. And they're
that's right.
And they're immune to the venom.
The venom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll see because I do have a rabbit problem happening in my grass again. And my dog is not doing a good job of keeping them at bay. But it's only one rabbit. It's not a family yet.
You're right on the canyon, right? The other side of your house is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be ongoing. You're not going to one day go, well, took care of all those problems. I can relax.
No.
I planted some, just from cutting some carapia.
Oh.
Because I really like the idea of using that as a ground cover, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But rabbits just love it. I mean, I tried it on a hillside. I rooted, I think it was like 30 plants 2 years ago. Put them on the hillside. They all started growing, and either rabbits or ground squirrels ate every single piece.
Now, John, I have to imagine you have coyotes, right, in that area.
I do.
Yeah.
They're not keeping the population of rabbits at bay?
Way too much.
Yeah.
Hey, West Coast Turf, I hear, has sawed carapia now. So if you're looking for more of it, I don't know.
To feed the rabbits.
Well, if you get your rabbit problem under control.
Well, I did. Out in one area that was kind of exposed, I just stuck in a couple more cuttings, and right now they're probably about 4 feet by 4 feet, because that stuff grows really fast. But I noticed, I went by there the other day, and you mentioning your lawn made me think of this. It's all mowed really short, and they've gone through. But I'm thinking maybe if the roots are established enough, it'll withstand it. I don't know.
Hey, Tiger, Patty says 10 years ago a rattlesnake bit their lab.
Yeah.
Cost them $1,500.
Jeez.
Well, let's adjust that for inflation. Going to cost you $2,500 now instead of $1,500.
Oh, man. I can totally see him getting bit, too.
And it would, now, does he come in inside the house at night?
Yeah.
No, they keep the snakes in the yard.
Why would you keep the snake in the yard? Well, my point being, as soon as he were to be bit, you'd want to be right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it'd be awful if somebody wasn't home.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. Oh, man. I hate that. Did you run into a lot of rattlesnakes when you lived in your other house? Because you had it fully gardened, and that's kind of hard sometimes when it's fully
never ran into a rattlesnake there. There were other snakes.
We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about what kind of snakes John was up against and what he may be up against with this new house. Okay, we have plenty of time. Questions, comments there on our Facebook page. Happy to have you along. I'm Brian Main. John Bagnasco and Tiger Palafox, a quick segment, quick break. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. Garden America coming right back. Okay, right back. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. We are having a good time. Ed got us all charged up today. We appreciate your questions, your comments. I think, were we talking about snakes? Yes, talking about snakes before the break. And you had asked John if he had any rattlesnake problems in his old house. And
Yeah.
John's got snakes now. He's got rabbits. He's got, do you have any?
I have had one rattlesnake at the new house, and I'm sure there's more out there,
yeah.
but never a rattle that I recall at the old house,
Now,
though there were other snakes.
this rattlesnake that you saw recently, you came across it or heard the rattle?
A couple years ago.
Well, you said in this new house you have a
Yeah.
rattlesnake, right?
It was a couple years ago before we
Or
had
before
the
there was
house
even a
there.
house there.
Yeah,
Did you stumble across it, or did you hear the rattle?
neither one.
So how did you find it? How did you know it was there?
Oh, my son told me.
Oh, my son had a friend who had a cousin who told me that there was a snake there 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
got
How
it.
did you know?
I got it.
So Rochelle, though, wrote, and she used Snake Be Gone, put an 18-inch perimeter, a barrier, and, hasn't had a snake problem.
She lives in
2
snake
years.
country too.
Yeah, Blossom Valley there, she has snakes everywhere.
So that it works, huh? I guess.
So maybe I can just put some of that Snake Be Gone down along it, because I only have one fence line that borders the canyon. So if I could just put that down right at that fence line.
What actually is in that product? What does it do to deter snakes? I'm just
Snake Be Gone is,
Just
I think it's
curious.
a odor-based repellent. That's the same company that makes the different scrams.
deer scram, rabbit scram, which are I think a lot of those are garlic based.
Or Deer Be Gone. Yeah, Deer Be Gone. That's the other one. Yeah.
Well, that's a thought,
I'll have
Tiger.
to look for that. But snake repellents, yeah. And I don't want to put like the little fence at the base of mine, just because I feel like that's so hard to manage as well. But yeah, bummer. That's what happens when you live in an expanding garden.
But it's so funny because the front of your house is all residential.
You would never know.
And then all of a sudden, the backyard, you're in out in the country. There's a big
Yeah.
canyon there.
Yeah.
I was thinking of, I don't know why the Snake Be Gone reminded me of it, but, depending where you are, you have different problems to take care of, right?
Yeah.
And
Or you've got that new product, Neighbors Be Gone.
well, no, but I took a picture of this when Tiger and I were in England because I had never thought of this type of product. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, fox repellent.
Fox, Scoot.
Well, so
Fox Scoot,
so
Fox
we
repellent.
we were in downtown London, right? That's
Yeah.
where we were our first day, London, right?
Oh, the hotel we stayed at?
hotel.
Yeah.
Literally the middle of the city, and they have this beautiful courtyard in the middle of the city in our hotel. I look out my window, and there's just 4 foxes sitting in the grass in the courtyard that morning.
Right in the middle of
Yeah.
downtown people, population.
Downtown London.
They were bigger than I thought they'd be, too.
Yeah. Like, they don't just scooch through cracks. Like, they had to have openings to get through.
Right.
And they're just part of the landscape.
Yeah. They're real
Part of the
problematic.
landscape.
They're real problematic because they were digging in trash and stuff. So they're
Yeah.
kind of like rats, kind of in a way
Well, they're
like that.
scavengers. They
Yeah.
steal.
But I was just shocked
Wow.
that here we are in the middle of this city, bustling city, and there were foxes in the middle of it. Yeah. It's Fox Be Gone.
Fox Be Gone. Scoot.
Yeah. Oh. So-
Well, we don't have to worry about foxes.
No. When we were in Cancun this last week, they have raccoons, but then they have these other things that are like raccoons, like a family of them, and they travel in more like packs like raccoons. And at the water park we were at, they just would come up to the trash can, middle of people, hundreds of people all around. They would just come up to the trash can, take the lid off, go into the trash can, and then walk back into the woods.
They did put the lid back on when they were done.
No, they weren't that
That's
nice.
rude.
Yeah,
But you don't know what they were.
we asked them, and they had a name, and they're basically a kind of raccoon. I can't remember what they were, but yeah, it's funny. Question: Are people picking tomatoes? Yeah, I've been picking tomatoes
I am.
for months now.
Every day. Hey, speaking of that, so I get a lot of these little cherry tomatoes, which we just every night we're harvesting. But then you gave me a tomato a few months ago, and I'm starting to get now tomatoes on there. They're still green, but they look like they're going to be pretty good sized tomatoes.
I think he gave you one of the Thornburn terracotta,
yeah.
like what John has.
Right.
I think I
right.
gave you one of those.
Yeah.
Those are tasty. Those are good.
But yeah, the peppers, John, the peppers, everything is just. I mean, our salads every night are just it's It's a bountiful harvest.
It's the second year for your peppers, right?
Yeah, but a lot more prolific this year.
Really?
A lot more.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very good too. Very sweet.
I had something happen the other day, which I've never had happen before. So I have 2 shishito pepper plants. I harvested so many shishito peppers that when I cooked them up and I ate them, I got full. Because I just had so many shishito peppers off of it. I had a plethora of shishito peppers.
You had like a meal.
I did.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I'll just cook all of them up. And I started eating them. And after like 3/4 of the way, I was like, I'm stuffed now. I couldn't eat any more peppers.
I'm surprised I haven't had more rodent problems or pest problems with my tomatoes and peppers.
Yeah.
Only one pepper did I see a hole right in the middle. Had to be a rat. Right in the
Could
middle.
have been a rat, even a bird.
It wasn't a pretty big hole. I guess if the bird stayed there for a while. But been pretty lucky.
If it was a condor.
Giant. A condor would be as big as your patio.
I only have one tomato at my house. And, because we were
Has
in
that always been your nickname
transition
for
this
Shannon?
year.
My little tomato.
See, whenever you say something, it
Throws
just
them
puts
off.
you off?
No, but it puts something in, like a rose. One of my favorite roses now is called Mon Petit Chou, which is French for my little cabbage.
My little cabbage.
Yeah, and that it's kind of a term of endearment in
Yeah.
France, my little cabbage.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, so you got
So let's get back to I only have one tomato.
only one, right.
That's what you were saying.
And that also reminds me of when my wife and I were first married, and that song was out. I'm sure I'm butchering it. It was like it was a Spanish song, Guantanamera.
Yeah, by the
yeah.
Sandpipers, I think, sang that.
Yeah.
Guantanamera, yeah.
Yeah. And our neighbor was kind of dense, but he was a fun guy. We'd go over there every now and then. The wife was the smart one in the family. But we mentioned that song because it was a popular song at the time,
Very
right?
popular, absolutely, yeah.
And I said, but I can't understand what they're talking about. He goes, the tomato song? I go, tomato? He goes, yeah. 1 ton tomato. I picked a 1 ton tomato.
1 ton tomato. Oh, my God. And he was serious.
He was serious. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Guantanamera.
Anyway, so I have one tomato plant, and it came up from a seed.
Oh.
And it's back where, the first tree we planted on our property came by way of a listener via Tiger,
Yeah.
the Cashmere Cypress, which right now is looking just spectacular. It's so pretty. But at the base of it, a tomato, where it came from, I have no idea, but it's got about 30 to 40 good size cutting tomatoes on it. They're not ripe yet, so being a seedling, I don't know where it came from or what it'll be like. But you mentioned the Thornburns terracotta, and I'm kind of thinking if these don't turn red, that it might be a seed that came from there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's real interesting. It's like it took a while to get there, but
once you got there, the destination was kind of fun.
One of our listeners had two tomato plants die in this heat wave. I had my
I guess the further inland you are, the more that's likely to happen.
That was Lenore, and she's in Canyon Country.
Yeah, well, the name says it all.
Yeah.
But I had one of my tomato plants completely kind of like die back, look really stressed out. And then as soon as it cooled off again, it kind of
snapped right
back into it. Looks green and beautiful again. Lots of leaves and putting out fruit. It just didn't really like that real hot time. But then as soon as it cooled off, it came back. I was surprised. I was expecting it to die. I did not expect it to come back. So I don't water that one. Maybe that's why Ed was on the right path. I just don't even take care of that tomato at all.
And it does
just does its own thing.
Well, an easy way, people will ask me, how often should I water my tomatoes? And you water them one time, and then you watch to see how long it takes for them to wilt. And if it takes 2 days, 3 days.
Yes.
You water every 3 days, but just a couple hours earlier than when they
Then
wilt
when it's
it.
going to wilt. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a way to save water and a good way to not overwater your
That's,
plants.
That's also a way I kind of tell people plants that wilt, because not all plants wilt with underwatering, but
Right.
most show something.
We got to take a break already, Tiger.
Do we?
Yeah, and this is our last segment coming up.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
I'll
I got
finish
so
my
much
thought
I
when we
want
get
to
back.
talk
And
about.
John's got a lot to talk about. So do you. So we're going to take that one final break. Next segment, last segment of the day. So if you have any questions or comments, want to get through to us, now's the time. This is Garden America. John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox. I'm Brian Main. Every week we're right here because it is, after all, Garden America. You are just in time to join us for the final segment of this Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, depending upon where you are. We invite you to share with your friends Garden America because we are a growing experience, growing all the time.
Yeah, and before the break, I was mentioning on growing plants and how to know if you're under or over watering is that if a plant is wilting, sometimes that's underwatering, sometimes that could be
Overwatering, yeah.
But if you water it and it perks back up, you were underwatering.
Exactly.
If you water it and it stays wilted, you're overwatering.
And take a look at the soil. Stick your finger down if it's in a pot or surrounding areas. You can tell.
Well, not you. You're the one that overwatered your banana.
See, I didn't tell John that yet. You know what? I was going to spring that on John.
Did you kill that?
Yeah. Let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
This thing
You know,
was doing,
that's almost impossible to overwater
overwater
a banana.
well, let me tell you. It was in a pot, kind of pushed up against these other naturally growing plants, whatever they are, from the association.
With no drainage in the pot?
It had drainage, but I got a little freaked out because of the hot weather.
Yeah.
And I
water
noticed
heavy.
it was starting to lean. So I was, I'd prop it up, get some rocks in there, and kind of push it
Because
up.
the roots had rotted?
And you're getting ahead of me. So then I went out there and I said, this thing's not standing up on its own like it should. So I just barely touched it, and it kind of flopped over and came right out of the pot. And then I was telling Tiger I should have known better because my first experience with a banana tree, but every time I would cut a dead shoot off, John, a lot of moisture. A lot of moisture because that's what they are. So, but the good news is I still have a bit of a stump left in there. I don't think it's a lost cause. It's going to take a while for it to come back. But yes, I did.
Yeah, they put new leaves right out the center.
In the
So
middle of it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Which is a good lesson for
It's
the other.
virtually impossible.
Oh, nothing's impossible with me.
Test me.
Try
me.
And I admit it. So, and I knew right away. I knew exactly right away what happened.
Oh, man.
And I think maybe somebody else was watering it too, some of the landscapers. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to take full blame.
John, he just had a hose directly hooked up to it and just had it running the whole time.
24 hours a day. Was that wrong?
look at this picture I took yesterday, Tiger. This is thanks to you telling me about the fertilizer to use.
Oh, look at those plumeria blossoms. I like
That's
the fringe flowers.
It's Vishnu gold, and it's referred
man.
to as tulip shaped.
Yeah.
And each one of those flowers is about this big around.
Wow. You better watch that one if I come over and visit. I'll be snagging,
I was going to bring
I'll be
you a
snagging
cutting
branch.
of the variegated one today, but then I know you're going on vacation, so I thought
Yeah.
I'll just wait till you get back.
I got a cutting from Cancun again.
Really?
That's my new thing now.
Cutting from Cancun. That sounds like something. Title of a book.
Bright hot pink one.
Have you read his latest book called Cutting in Cancun?
That'd be a good book. My plant adventures, my plant thief adventures from around the world.
Carla says that she's been harvesting tomatoes from plants she put down last year.
Yep. Yeah.
The same thing with my son and daughter-in-law. They had grafted tomatoes last year. The plants are growing again this year, loaded with tomatoes. Eggplant.
Wow.
It's like 4 foot tall now,
Whoa.
loaded with eggplant.
Wow.
And their peppers aren't doing well, though. Peppers from last year.
No.
I think it was the soil, so I went fertilized them to see what happens.
No. Okay.
But anyway, none of this
I
stuff
like-
should come from last year.
I'm gonna have pepper bushes just throughout my landscape. I like to use them as landscape little fillers. Peppers. Yeah.
Are you going to use some of the really hot ones, like
No, because
scorpion?
I just I
I'm
just
not
don't
a hot
eat.
pepper guy.
I don't even grow jalapenos. Not that I like jalapenos,
Yeah.
but I'd rather have the other ones that are just more tasty that you can snack on.
Like good salad peppers.
Yeah.
Like the ones we have, they're sweet. I mean, sweet.
Yeah.
Now, you had the gold, right? Yeah. Linda up in Reading says that she put shade cloth over her
Ooh,
tomatoes when
that's
it
a good
got
way.
really
Yeah.
hot, and then that's just a good recommendation for anything. If you're in 100-degree
Yeah.
plus temperatures and you have something other than cactus or plumeria, if you throw some shade cloth over, it'll really help. I think, was it last year we hit that 113-degree temperature?
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah.
And I still have damage to some roses that didn't get cut back far enough, where it just literally burned the stems. It was so sad.
Aw. Yeah.
But anyway, everything's coming back.
Yeah, or those umbrellas. Those umbrellas are nice. Those big patio umbrellas are good too for like your garden bed. If you have a garden box, you can just put an umbrella over it.
Well, it's just like anybody else. Like John always likes to, compare that to the human experience. If you're outside, you get a sunburn, you're going to want to seek shade.
Yeah.
Or a plant that's been indoors, and then you put it outside, and it's going to burn. Same thing.
Babied it. Yeah.
Speaking of plants outside, my son had gotten, I think, maybe like a 7-gallon Fiddly Fig for indoors. And there used to be, is it still out there? There was one in the lobby here at the radio station.
I don't know if it's
Is it still there?
I don't know.
But anyway, they've been kind of popular recently for interior scaping, right? And so they got fungus gnats in the soil, tried to get rid of them. They had it sitting in a pot with no drainage. And so they put it outside and, of course, burned, just like you're talking about, Brian. So he was just going to rip it out. I said, those things are like $100. Yeah. He goes, well, it's dead. I go, it's not dead.
No,
Plant it in the ground. I said, I've always wanted a Fiddly Fig growing in the ground. So I think just to humor me, he planted it. And mainly he planted it, I think, to say, see, I told you so.
Yeah.
But right now it's just full of all new leaves.
Yeah.
They're all coming out green because they're accustomed to the sun, like you're saying, Brian. No sunburn on them at all.
No sun. Hey, that's going to do it.
Wow.
That was a quick
Happy
segment.
Saturday.
Happy Saturday. And thank you for tuning in.
Hey, real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
Lila wants to know what to do for blossom end rot on tomato. Calcium.
Calcium.
So you can get liquid calcium, put it right on the plant, or when you plant the tomato, throw a little bit of gypsum in the soil.
Okay, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in on BizTalk Radio and, of course, Facebook Live. We'll do it again next week. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend, a good week ahead. And remember, every week right here, go to our website, brand new, up and running, looks good, links to everything. That's GardenAmerica.com. For the entire crew, I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. Till next week, or as Roy Rogers used to say, happy trails. We'll catch you next time here on Garden America.